important is force and action. Not to meditate, not to go to any, thank you very much, not to go into any dialogues in my own mind, but to know that this is what I have to do, and not to even give any substance to any thoughts that would that would question it, and not to answer myself in my mind why those thoughts are not valid because of this reason, and then another question comes up, so I'll give another reason, but just to be strong and know that this is something which is I can't compromise, has to be this way. It reminded me of a story which happened with the shliach, but interesting enough, the Rebbe told the story by Fabrengen. There's a shliach in Minnesota, one of the first shluchim was Rabbi Feller, and in fact, he's the one who started Beis Chana, which is even before the school began, I think, and that was the place where women studied with Rabbi Friedman for a month or two, and very often from there they came on here to do more, permanent learning. So he wanted to get in touch with a certain scientist. Professor Green was his name. And it was very hard to get an appointment with him. And only after months and months, he finally got an appointment with him. And got to his office. And I don't know why there was some pause. Maybe he went to look up something, or he was busy on the phone with something. And then he realized it was very late, and he has to have mincha, the shliach. And if he keeps going, it'll be too late to have mincha. It'll be after sundown. It'll be too late to have mincha. So while he was busy on the phone or doing whatever he was doing, this professor was totally not religious. He decided he's going to have mincha in his office right there. Now you would think doing something like that, I don't know what he came for. If he came to fundraise, or he came to invite him to some sort of Chabad activity or gathering. But you would think that this would be a turnoff because you come to me, and he finally gave me an appointment after who knows how many months, and in my office standing here and you're davening mincha. At the end, this was the clincher. This had such an effect on him. He was so impressed by the fact that he's so devoted and dedicated to what he's doing that he didn't care about anything. He knew he has to have mincha. That's what turned him around, and he became a very famous lecturer on Yiddishkeit, for years and years. Whole entire Frum family, the Babich family, Shluchim, and everything. So, like I mentioned yesterday, the thought might come to my mind, but for Yiddishkeit purposes, maybe today is better if I don't daven mincha, because if I do daven, if I turn them off, I'm going to be able to lose out on something else, and that's maybe bigger. No, maybe this is bigger, maybe that's bigger. If I go into these dialogues, it'll never end, and I'll never end up doing what I need to do. So when it comes to Nisayan, if I know that this is what I need to do, of course I have to know that this is what I need to do. If that's the case, if I know I'm obligated to do this mitzvah, then I just don't allow all those thoughts. I just go for it. I just do what has to be done. But this is with takev. This comes with force, and the force comes from the pintaliyat, from the yechida, because the yechida is a force that cannot be broken, cannot be bent, cannot be touched, and therefore, when that comes out in the open, the person is able to stand up against anything. So we finished off pretty much close to the end of the page. Then on top it says page 198. Where he said that not to pay attention to all the difficulties. Again, he was probably alluding to the difficulties they were going through at that time, all the tests in the times of communist Russia, where they closed out yeshivas and mikvahs and cheder and kashrus and didn't allow anything that had to do with Yiddishkeit, tried to uproot everything. And a lot of it was coming from Jews themselves who became communists. So it was a very big test. And he said the thought could come to a person that why would Hashem do such a thing? Why would Hashem give us tests in such a time in history where people are so much weaker than what they used to be? Because these are the heels. We mentioned yesterday that this time period is called Ikvus of the Mashiach, which has two ways of translating it. One is we hear the footsteps of Mashiach, we're close to Geula. And also Ikvus comes from the word the heels. Obviously, it's related. When a person's walking, you hear footsteps, it's with the heels. But it means the heels, just like in a person, there's a head, there's heart, there's eyes, there's ears, there's nose, there's mouth, so many different faculties. But the lowest part of the body are naturally the legs, then the feet, and then the feet itself, the heels. It's brought down in Hasidus that the heels is considered the most insensitive part of the body that feels the least pain. So therefore, we are in a generation that we're equus of the Mashiach. We're all the way at the end. We're at the bottom. So we're weaker than other generations. Why does Hashem put us through such a test? And the answer is that Hashem will not put us through a test that we can't handle. And therefore brings what we said yesterday, that a king of flesh, when he makes demands of people, he doesn't take in consideration who these people are, what their weaknesses are. He thinks more about himself and people that are around him, and he can make demands of things that are not reasonable. And of course, when he gives people rewards, he rewards them in a way that they should be happy, in a very limited way. Hashem does the opposite. When he makes demands according to our capacity, not according to his capacity. Hashem knows every single person that he created. Hashem knows their strengths. Hashem knows their weaknesses. Hashem knows what our capacity is. And when he makes a demand of me to do something, that means that I have the ability and the capacity to rise to the occasion. And when Hashem rewards us, he gives us a reward according to his capacity. And that's where we left off yesterday. So we're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4 lines from the bottom. With that page, it says 198. And at the end of the line, there's a comma. 3 more words. That's where we're going to start. The last 3 words on that line. The ilazois, being that that's the case, that Hashem, if he makes demands of a person, he gives them the koyach, he gives them the strength and the ability that they be able to stand up to whatever challenge it is. So certainly, Hashem provides him with the koyach, with the strength to overcome kol hamaniyas v'ikuvim, to overcome all the things that are blocking, all the things that are preventing him from doing what he needs to do, and should be able to fulfill the ultimate purpose of Hashem, why he created the world, and why he created me, what's my part that I need to do in fulfilling the purpose of creation of the world. Remember, we learned that Mamar about Ashgacha Pratis, and he said that what's so unique about the teachings of Baal Shem Tov is not only that everything in the world, even the details of things like animals and objects that are inanimate and plants and even a blade of grass, every detail that happens to it is being led by Hashem for a purpose, but that ultimately that purpose of why this blade of grass shakes back and forth so many times is connected to the purpose of the entire creation, why Hashem created the world at large. Of course, which is beyond our comprehension, but it basically means there's a puzzle, and every single object in the world is a piece to that puzzle. Without that piece, the puzzle is incomplete. How much more so when we talk about humans and we talk about Yidden, that every single one of us has a purpose, has a mission, and whatever that mission is, through that, we are fulfilling the purpose of the entire creation. By me doing what I need to do, that person does what they need to do, and the third person does what they need to do. All together, everyone fulfills that purpose. So I personally have this in this test I say to myself, Hashem surely gave me the koyach to overcome the test, and by doing that, I will be able to fulfill the ultimate purpose why Hashem gave me this test, and through that contribute to the ultimate purpose of creation. Okay, and if that's the case, so therefore, everything depends only on my avodah and the work that I do with myself. Implying it's not about the work that I do with that person outside of me that's trying to stop me. That's not my avodah is to work with myself, to be strong. Like we said, to disengage and dismiss and not pay any attention to whatever is outside of me that's trying to bring me down. The area take of Nekudas Nafshi, and what is my avodah? To arouse and to awaken that force that comes from the Nekudas Nafshi, from the essence of the soul. Lamed b'nisayon, to stand up to the test. L'skasher b'limud HaTorah, l'kiyum mitzvahs, to create a bond. I'm not just learning Torah, but I'm connected to it. Learning Torah and the observance of mitzvahs, it's part of my essence, and I can't be without it. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe, where the Alter Rebbe, when he was arrested, and he was arrested, unfortunately, because there were Jews who filed a false accusation against him. And in those days, the Jews that filed a false accusation against him weren't Jews like communists. They were actually Torah scholars, some of them Torah leaders, but they had this idea that Hasidus is something which is against Yiddishkeit, and therefore they have to stop it. And the plan was, by God forbid, eliminating the Alter Rebbe, who was the head of the movement. The whole movement will stop. That was their plan. Anyway, the Alter Rebbe was arrested and miraculously was freed from jail. And after he went out of jail, he spread Hasidus even more than ever before. But one of the things that happened when he went out of the jail, he was jailed twice, that one of the people who helped in the process of releasing him was actually from the other side, not from the Hasidic side. And he told Alter Rebbe he wants him to do three things. He wants him to promise him that he will meet with three great rabbis from the camp of the opposition, from the Misnagdim. In other words, and talk to them and debate the issue with them about the Hasidus is a good thing or not. And Alter Rebbe promised him he would do that. And he went to these three great rabbis. So the story with one of them is named Rebbe Shua Tzeitlin. In other words, this was a man who, number one, was a great Torah scholar, but he was also a public figure. He was a very big activist in the Jewish community. He had a lot of power. He had a lot of connections to high, offices. And he wanted him to meet him to see whether he would agree that the Alter Rebbe is sort of okay. So the story with him was that when this is by the way, but there's another point I wanted to bring out. A lot of amazing things happened. That when he finished the meeting, he publicly announced that Alter Rebbe is a tzaddik, and people should respect him, and all the opposition should stop. It was a very big help. But one of the things that happened was that being that it says that Hashem protects tzaddikim from doing averos, he was going to check to see whether Alter Rebbe is really a tzaddik. What did he decide to do to check it out? He had a non-Jewish worker who spoke fluent Yiddish. So these people grew up in the Jewish community, and they worked for Jews. They spoke fluent Yiddish, no different than any other Jew. So you couldn't tell whether he's a Jew or not. And he told him that he should bring wine and put it on the table. A non-Jew handles wine, it's not kosher. And he wanted to see whether the Alter Rebbe is going to make a bracha on the wine or not. If he makes a bracha on the wine, that means he stumbled. Then obviously he's not such a big tzaddik. If he senses that there's something wrong with it, he can, or Hashem does something, he'll see that he's a tzaddik. So what happened was he brought the wine to the table. Alter Rebbe took the wine and started making the bracha. Now, he was a religious Jew. He was not going to make another Jew pronounce Hashem's name in vain and wouldn't make another Jew drink trade wine. His plan was, if he sees that he's about to make the bracha, then I'll stop him and tell him, no, sorry, there's a mistake. This wine isn't kosher. When the Alter Rebbe started to make the bracha, his face was so transformed. And there was such radiance, he never in his life saw a person making a simple bracha and like go up, on a trip like that. So he was so overwhelmed, he forgot that he's supposed to stop the Alter Rebbe. And he finished off the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, shehakol niyah b'dvaro. Instead of Baruch Yagofen, and he drank it. Then the Alter Rebbe turned to him and said, this is not wine, this is actually honey wine. That's what made shehakol. But by the way, there's now a question in halacha about all the wine in your cellar. Since you sent an non-Jew down there to get wine, now all the wine in the cellar is in question. So right away he saw the Alter Rebbe is from a different planet. He planned all this, and the Alter Rebbe knew exactly what he planned and what it was. So one of the things that happened, he said to the Alter Rebbe, he was asking him a lot of questions. What is the difference between the way Hasidim approach this and the way we approach it? And one of the questions was that in our community, we encourage everybody to have a time set aside for learning every day. In Hebrew, the word is kviyas. How will you translate that? Kviyas means that it should be a fixed time. Fixed means that this is something which is, you don't budge. It's fixed. That every day you set aside time, and every day the same time for learning Torah. And I said, I know that the Hasidim also do the same thing. What is the difference? So Alter Rebbe's answer was, I'll just tell you the word, then I'll explain it. He said that in other circles, it's a kviyas in zman. And by Hasidim, it's a kviyas in nefesh. What does it mean? When you say it's fixed, it could be two possibilities. One way it's fixed in time, or it's fixed in my neshama. The difference is fixed in time means like to discipline myself that every single day, no matter what, I'm going to show up to that learning. And every single day when that time comes around between 8 and 9 in the evening, I'm sitting in that class and learning. It's fixed. So in a sense, it's discipline in time, like time management. Kriyas b'nefesh means it's fixed in my neshama. It's not about the time. I'm so connected to Torah and so connected to learning that naturally I can't go on a day without learning. It's like a person would say that every day I eat. It's not because I decided that every day I'm going to be time managed and make sure to eat. If I don't eat, my stomach tells me that I haven't eaten. Something inside me feels hunger. That's the way I should feel when I'm not learning. So this is similar to what he says here. I'm going to say this kasha, to bind myself to learning Torah during mitzvah, not just to do it, but to feel bound to it and to feel that this is my life. That's what it means. How good are your tents, Yaakov? Shema Botik Mesias Botim Midrashis. They said this in the beginning of the Maimer, that the tents of Yaakov means the shuls and the yeshivas. The shuls are places where you daven. The yeshivas are places where you learn Torah. Of course, today we have both in both places. Every shul is usually shiurim, but even today there's certain places that are primarily designated as a place of prayer, and certain places that are primarily designated as a place of learning. Like the Shki, the Ba'isi Sater, the Shur Erev Avayik, Berabim Dafka, and by being diligent, by learning Torah, and learning Torah by day and by night, and learning Torah in public, Dafka. For a man, not only is he obligated to learn Torah, but he's obligated to learn by day and by night. It's based on a verse in Torah, which means imagine if a person learns Torah the entire day, from 7 o'clock in the morning until sundown, but doesn't learn Torah at night, he violated something in Torah. A man is supposed to learn by day and by night. Of course, he has other obligations, but in his free time. And then he emphasized that it should be in public. In those days, especially, the Frierdiker Rebbe emphasized that people should study Torah as groups because even though knowledge in Torah you can also gain if you learn by yourself or with the chavrusa, two friends together. But in terms of the strength that Torah gives, you get that much more when people are learning together as a group. Yisrael, and your dwelling place, what is that? Hey, ma'avis re'im, the kinyan midas tevis, haba melimut pnimis hatera. That's alluding to, remember you asked the question, what is the difference between the two terms, your tent and your dwelling place? So the dwelling place says it's specifically alluding to the love of one to another and acquiring good character traits. And that comes primarily from learning the inner, deeper part of Torah, which is meant to refine us and make us more refined in our personality and our character traits. You're doing that, setting a time aside that I'm not for davening and making it that it's something which I'm connected to, I'm not compromising. Setting aside time for learning and not compromising. And then specifically learning Hasidus, which has an effect on refining our character traits to be more kind, and there should be love between one yid and another. Through this, Hashem will give us the strength to be strong and to overcome all the nisyanis, all the tests. By the way, I'm not sure that everybody knows that this pasuk, Matev Alecha Yaakov Mishkan Sefer Yisrael, is the Rebbe's pasuk. Remember with that? No. Right. Every person has a pasuk. No. So there's a pasuk in Torah that we're connected to, and that goes by our name. And in the davening Shemona Esrei, there's a part where we recite that pasuk. How do we know what it is? Basically, if a person's name, let's say, is Chana, so because it starts with a ches and ends with a hey, it's going to be a pasuk that also starts with a ches and ends with a hey. The Rebbe's second name starts with a mem and ends with a lamed, the name Mendel. The pasuk Mah Tovu Alecha also begins with a mem, Mah Tovu, and the last word is Yisrael, ends with a lamed. And then there's another pasuk for the Rebbe's first name. So every chassid usually says their own pasuk in Shemona Esrei, and we also say the Rebbe's pasuk. So this Mah Tovu Alecha is the Rebbe's pasuk.
Okay. So you're saying Shemona Esrei when you say your pasuk.
So just show you those so that you know your.
Which one do we say first, Rabbi Majeski? Ours or the Rebbe's?
There's certain siddurim that have it in the back. One of these siddurim, one of the Hebrew siddurim, have the list. It's not in the regular Hebrew siddurim. The English. It's maybe this one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I think so.
So this siddur should be here.
Well, Rabbi, technically you can take any pasuk from the Torah, no?
Nice try, that area. What?
Technically you can take any pasuk from the Torah that starts with an end.
Yeah, right. Well, but in the back of the siddur, there's a collection of. It'll also show you there's a certain part at the end of the Shemona Esrei where we pause and we say those psukim. Quickly, I wanted to spend a little bit of time to talk about the Rebbe Rashab. Let's say the Rebbe Rashab's birthday. But being that Mrs. Lemony is not here, we'll have both classes together, and that's what I'll be talking about the Rebbe Rashab. Oh, here it is. Okay. Thank you. So which siddur is this? This one. Right. What most people do, at least for starters, you make a copy of this, keep it in your siddur, and when it comes to that part of davening, you recite it. You have two names, there's two psukim. If your parents gave you three names, you say three psukim. take a little bit longer, you know, the Shemini Esrei.
You see your flipping or the Rebbe flipping first.
We say the Rebbe is flipping first, and we'll say our person. So if anyone asks you why is it taking so long to daven, say I have three names, you know. It's, yeah. They say that the German Jews are very, very punctual, very much into time, very, very precise. So a man called up his wife and told her that today I'm going to come home from shul a little bit later because we're starting to say Mashiach Baruch Amor Dagesha. 4 more words. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so might as well do the last one and then we'll do the review. We're already here. So this is Vov. It says here, hey, it's a mistake. It's Vov. This is the last chapter. So it happens to be that in continuation to this, the next page where you'll turn is in Mamar of the Rebbe Rashab. Would have been appropriate to do it today, but we didn't finish this one yet. But that one explains everything we learned here, explains it more and deeper. So hopefully we'll get there in a few days. V'hina Yuvan, Masha Mechalek, now we understand why he separates the two things. All the Yaakov, the tents of Yaakov, Mishkanes Yisrael, and the dwelling place of the Yidden, the Shnei Yonim Yichodim, two separate things. What is the difference between a tent? Oyhel, Hudiris Aran. The word Oyhel, which means a tent, it's a place where people live, but it's a temporary living arrangement. It's something which is portable. You move from here to there. So if you're traveling, you set up a tent, and that's where you stay. Mishkan, when you use the term Mishkan, that's Diras Kva. That's a place which is a permanent place, like a house where you live in. So by Yaakov, he uses the term Ohel. And by Yisrael, he uses the term Mishkan. Remember we said that Yidden have both names, the name Yaakov and the name Yisrael. I mean, Yaakov Avinu himself has two names, Yaakov and Yisrael. As a result of that, the Yidden are called the children of Yaakov. Sometimes it says Bnei Yaakov, sometimes it says Bnei Yisrael. Or the word that you find, Beis Yaakov. In fact, there's schools that are called Beis Yaakov, means the house of Jacob, means the Yidden. Specifically, it's referring to women. But in general, why does it say the word Ohel when it comes to Yaakov? And why does it use the Mishkan? There are two ways of serving Hashem. Both are serving Hashem, and both are important. And different people have different shlichus in this world. One is Avodas Habali Asokim. One is Avodah people who are in the business world, and they have to serve Hashem by going out there and working. And then Avodas Yisrael, there are those that sit in the tents, which means people that their mission in life is Torah. They learn Torah, they teach Torah, and they're preoccupied with Torah more than anything else. Habali Asokim and the Kron Yaakov, why are they called Yaakov? The word Yaakov is made up of two words, Yud, Ekev. Ekev, we just said before, means a hill, and Yud is Hashem's name. So it means that a Yaakov, a Yidden, that their mission in life is to bring godliness down to the lower places in this world, the world where people are working, doing business, and in that place to do things according to the way Hashem wants, and to overcome the tests that are out there in the street. Shame, just like the heel is the end of the body, the lowest part of the body. So too it appears that these people who are simple people, they're not really involved with learning Torah, they're not involved with developing feelings of love and fear of Hashem through dedicating themselves to daven for hours. They're busy. Most of their time in the day is spent out there in the world of working. So that seems to be like the heel. They're constantly busy with their sustenance and with their work out there. The Giyat Suma, which is sometimes very hard. The Giyas Nefesh, the Giyas Basar. This is a term which is found in Tanya and used a lot. It means working hard, with the soul is working hard and the body is working hard. In other words, there's certain things where the hardship is just physical. Physical, you have to stand on your feet for many hours. You have to lift things that are heavy for many hours. And the physical is physical labor. And sometimes labor is more nefesh. It's emotional. It's difficulty that dealing with people. There's emotional difficulties. Or people are not being honest, or people are being saying things that are offensive, or people are trying to hurt me one way or another. All this interaction with people in that world, it involves the Yigiyas Nefesh, labor of the soul and labor of the body, of the flesh. So it appears to be as if they're at the lowest end of the spectrum. Dafka through them, who kim kol Yisrael. They're the ones that support and sustain the whole body. In other words, just like physically, yes, the feet are all the way in the bottom, but the feet uphold the head and the heart and everything else in the body. So too, those Yidden are doing the work in this lowest place of the world, but on the other hand, they are supporting everyone else. As we know, Chassidus always talks about the whole purpose of creation was to make a dwelling place in this physical world. This physical world is also like the hills compared to all the spiritual worlds. And just like the hills are the ones that everything else sort of sits on this, and this supports the rest of the body, that's how it is with the spiritual world. When we do mitzvahs in this physical world, we're lifting the world of Yitzira, the world of Bria, the world of Atzilus, Kesser, everything is lifted because it's all sitting on this physical world. So in the physical world itself, when Torah and mitzvah are being done in the lowest place in the physical world, that lifts everything else that's higher. So even though on the surface it looks to be as if they're in the lowest place, or they're working in the lowest place, but dafka through that, they're lifting everything else. That's what the Yud stands for. What's the Yud? The Yud is one letter that represents a letter that all the letters have length and width to it. Some are just long, like a Vav. Some have length and width, like a Daled. Some have more than that, like a Hey or a Ches. Different forms and different shapes. A Yud is pretty much a dot. So the Yud is Nekudas HaYadus. That represents that Pintali Yud, that dot, the essence. And we bring that down, Gam B'Ho'eker, that it manifests and it has an effect even down in the lowest places of the world, which is the Eker of the hills. Even in simple matters like Mischa, the Kinyan, when it comes to doing business, buying things and selling things and dealing with people in that world, that's where you bring down good character traits. You see acts of kindness, the sinas tzedakah, where people are giving tzedakah to one another, and true love for another. In other words, we know that in the business world, we often see the exact opposite. A lot of competition. People are trying to cut the other person down, destroy their business and build my business. People are not being honest. They promise one thing and do the opposite. And when I go into that world and I do things according to Torah, that my word is a word, and I make sure that when I'm in that world, not only, just to give an example, it was once a chassid. He was by the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad. And when he was there, he was talking a lot about Gemilas Chasad, which means giving other people a loan, a free interest loan. We all know what it means to take a loan. They have a credit card, that's a loan. But the credit card is not free interest. The interest grows. And unfortunately, we all know what that means when interest grows. So the mitzvah is when you give somebody a loan and you say to them, this is a loan, no interest, when you can pay me back, make up a time, but this and this time you'll pay me back. And he spoke about it, how this is spiritually such an amazing thing. He went back home to his town And he just went around giving people loans, almost like convincing them maybe they can use a loan. Not only that, he had a business. He went to the guy who was his competition, and he gave him a loan, and he needed the loan. He could say, "Oh, I don't care if this business collapses; that'll be better for me." Not only he didn't do that, he went and he gave his competition money that it should be able to build his business. So you can be in the business world and you do acts of kindness, you do tzedakah, and you are doing things honestly the way Hashem wants. So you're bringing godliness into this lowest place of the world. And not only that, Kashem Koyim eat in the Torah, when these people who are involved in that world set aside time for learning, basically we have no concept, we have no idea how great of a pleasure this gives to Hashem, infinite pleasure. In other words, when a person who his occupation is learning and he's learning all day, well, what else? He's learning all day. That's his livelihood, or someone is supporting him, so he's able to learn all day. But if a person's in the business world and he's able to disconnect and say, okay, now enough, I have to go set aside time for learning no matter what, because the business world, number one, there's always something more that you need to do. And number two, even if you finished working, it comes along with you in your head. You're still thinking and you're bothered. You can't concentrate, you have to take care of this, take care of that. So when a person's able to just put on the brakes, stop, and I have to go learn now, so nothing is going to get in my way, that is much more of a pleasure to Hashem than a person who doesn't have to go through that because they're not in that world. So therefore, their learning is greater, their mitzvah, their acts of kindness are greater. Everything they do has much more value to Hashem. Okay, let me just do two more lines. This is all describing Yaakov, the Avodah of Yaakov. You do as it's known, Mefursam, Pisvarim or Pisofrim, as it's known, written in many holy books, and as we've heard from many holy sages, the Milas Halimud Barabin, how amazing it is when you're learning Torah in public, the Goydla Schus, and the tremendous schus there is in Amiras Tilim saying Tilim, V'limud Halacha V'Agoda, and to learn Halacha and Agoda. Agoda means the part of Gemara that's more the stories, because in these stories there's a lot of depth and a lot of lessons to learn about Midas Tovas, about good character traits, and also the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that in these stories there's very deep secrets of Kabbalah hidden in them. The reason why he mentions that, because the custom was always that people who went to work, when you finish working, your head is not really in a place where you can learn something very deep in Gemara. So they would sit down and learn either halacha, which is a little bit simpler, it's more cut and dry, you got to do this, do that, or they would learn Agada, which are the stories in Gemara, which are easy to concentrate on. And in many shuls, this is what they learn between Mincha and Ma'ariv. And all this is called Diras Arai. This is called a dwelling place or for Hashem, but it's Arai, which means it's temporary. It's not permanent. And then those people that their whole life is dedicated only and exclusively to learning, that's called Diras Kra.
When we're supposed to learn in the morning and afternoon.
Right. In other words, even someone who's very busy and you can only learn 20 minutes a day, you should learn 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. Or learn something in the morning, something at night. The Gemara says that if someone is so busy, so difficult, they can do more than learning just one pasuk, so we should say the Shema in the morning and the Shema at night. And even one pasuk, whatever he can do, but there has to be day and night. Okay.
Night is afternoon.
What?
Night is afternoon.
Afternoon? No, night is after night is Laila.
Okay.
There's a pasuk Hagisa Bohem Yoimam V'Laila.
Before we go to sleep.
Some people go to sleep by day, but if you go to sleep at night, yeah, before you go to sleep.
Okay.
Because usually in your sleep, it's a little bit hard to concentrate on the learning. It's before you go to sleep.
Okay.
You told them to come in,
No, I did. Did you want that paper?
this paper,
I can't find the, what you're looking for.
I'm looking for. Okay, yeah, work with this.
So how many should I make?
20 copies. 25 copies. Okay, so we'll stay here and just wait for the other girls to come in. Yeah,
There was a question last week about why we had the same if all the sparks are already out.
right.
And I learned this because Danny Abla, that basically the idea that we already elevated all the macro sparks and it's just like the tiny micro, like sparks that still need to be elevated. What I don't understand is how the macro can be elevated if not all the micro, like if something. I don't know.
Actually, in the Sikh it says there's no more elevating of sparks. Micro and not micro.
Says that there's one like. Can't remember exactly, like Noah.
No, so it's not talking about elevating the sparks. He's talking about if people need to correct things in themselves.
Right, then how, yeah.
But there's another Sikh that's specifically about elevating the spark. But there the Rebbe says that today, whatever we're doing is no longer elevating the sparks, but it's bringing down a higher light into the world. We're learning today.
Wednesday, right?
So remind me Wednesday, I'll show it to you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
10 o'clock.
Oh, come to me.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. I thought you meant tell him to come at 10. All right, I'll do that to you. Thank you.